Deep inside human history lies a price tag so terrifyingly huge, a $4 billion superyacht looks like pocket change. Today, we're exposing the absolute most expensive things ever created, from a missing 450 million painting to a 150 billion space station built just to be crashed into the ocean, and ranking them all the way to S tier. In 2010, a company called Quinn Street wrote a $49.7 million check for a website address. The name carinsurance.com, 14 letters, a dot, and 3 more letters. That's more than most regional hospitals cost to build, by the way. And the runners-up? Insurance.com at $35.6 million and vacationrentals.com at $35 million. Apparently, the most valuable real estate in history is just URLs nobody thought to register first. C tier. Action Comics 1 originally hit newsstands in June 1938 for a literal dime, 10 cents. A single copy sold at Heritage Auctions in 2014 for $32 million, representing a 32 million % return on pocket change. That's Superman's debut issue, which apparently nobody thought was worth keeping because most copies got thrown out. The ones that survived were stuffed in attic boxes and forgotten for decades. And somehow, a child's throwaway entertainment became the greatest financial return on a single coin in recorded human history. B tier. Now, from paper money and pocket change, let's talk about something way closer to home, literally you. The raw chemical ingredients in a single human body, carbon, calcium, iron, all of it scraped together, cost around $152,000 on the open market. Already not bad for something you got for free. But the US government officially values a single human life at $14.2 million for regulatory purposes. That's the number they use when calculating whether a safety law is worth passing. And then there's the black market, a full organ harvest, kidneys, liver, heart, lungs, corneas, total somewhere north of $45 million if you sell every part separately. You are walking around every day as a $45 million asset you have absolutely zero idea how to monetize. The thing is, you didn't pay a cent for yourself and you're somehow still depreciating. C tier. Leonardo da Vinci painted the Salvator Mundi, Savior of the World, on a 26 by 18-inch walnut panel sometime around 1500. He never fully finished it. It spent decades being passed around, misattributed to lesser painters, and at one point was literally stored in someone's bedroom, which, for a Da Vinci, is genuinely unhinged. Then on November 15, 2017, Christie's in New York held a 19-minute bidding war that ended at $453 million, the highest auction price ever paid for a single artwork in human history. And the buyer? Anonymously purchased on behalf of Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. It was supposed to go on display at the Louvre Abu Dhabi in 2018. It never showed up. Nobody knows where a $450 million Leonardo da Vinci is right now. Apparently, Savior of the World couldn't save itself from disappearing into a royal storage facility. S tier. The Mona Lisa has never sold, and somehow that makes it the most expensive object. Leonardo painted her around 53. She was stolen from the Louvre in 1911 by a museum employee who hid her under his coat. Either the boldest art heist in history or the most embarrassing security failure, depending on your perspective. In 1962, France insured her at $100 million, roughly $1 billion today, for a traveling exhibition. That insurance valuation is the closest thing to a price tag she has ever had. And it's not even real. France legally owns her. She cannot be sold under French heritage law, and the Louvre draws 9 million visitors a year specifically to stand 6 feet away behind bulletproof glass and squint. The most expensive painting on earth costs exactly nothing to see and exactly everything to own. S tier. The Cullinan diamond was discovered in 1905 by mine superintendent Frederick Wells, who literally spotted it sticking out of a mine wall in Transvaal, South Africa. 3,106 carats of flawless rough diamond, the largest gem-quality rough diamond ever found on Earth. The British government bought it for $150,000, shipped it to King Edward VII, and had master cutters Joseph Asher and Company spend months studying it before making a single cut. One wrong move and they destroy the most valuable object on the planet. Asher apparently fainted when the first cleave landed perfectly. It was split into 9 major stones. The 2 largest, the Great Star of Africa at 530 carats and the Lesser Star at 307, now sit in the British Crown Jewels. Total estimated value, $2 billion. Quietly sitting in a glass case in the Tower of London like a museum prop. S tier. Bugatti La Voiture Noire. One car, 16.7 million euros, roughly 18.7 million US dollars. Handed over in 2021 to a buyer whose name nobody knows, genuinely anonymous. Bugatti built exactly one. Carbon fiber body, quad turbocharged, 8-liter W16, 1479 horsepower, 6 exhaust pipes. It debuted at the 2019 Geneva Motor Show and instantly became the most expensive new car ever sold in history. And somehow the person who bought it doesn't want credit for that, which is either profound humility or the most expensive flex nobody gets to see. A tier. The Bugatti had one buyer too rich to brag. Now meet the guy who bought an entire ocean liner's worth of precious metal and called it a yacht. Robert Knox History Supreme is a 100-foot super yacht built by designer Stuart Hughes, wrapped in 100,000 kilograms of solid gold and platinum. The base, dining area, deck, anchor, and staircases are all plated in real gold and platinum. There's a wall feature made from genuine T-Rex dinosaur bone. The master bedroom includes a statue carved from a meteorite, and the liquor bottle on board contains an 18.5 carat diamond. In 2011, this thing sold for $48 billion. That's more gold by actual weight than the entire reserve holdings of several sovereign nations combined. Knox apparently needed somewhere to store his money that could also float. S tier. Mukesh Ambani is the richest man in Asia, worth somewhere north of $115 billion. And instead of buying a mansion, he built a 27-floor vertical city in the middle of Mumbai, India. Antilia. Completed in 2010, this thing covers 400,000 square feet on Altamount Road, one of the most expensive stretches of real estate on the planet. The garage holds 168 cars across 6 floors. There are 3 helipads on the roof. There's a dedicated snow room, a room that generates artificial snowfall in a city where it never drops below 60 degrees. 600 full-time staff maintain the property daily. There's a ballroom, a private cinema, multiple swimming pools, a spa, and 9 elevators. It's valued at $4.6 billion, making it the most expensive private residence ever built. And it was constructed on the site of a demolished orphanage. Obviously, nobody checked the optics on that one. S tier. Ken Griffin paid $238 million in January 2019 for a single penthouse at Ondive 7 on West 57th Street in Manhattan. That's one floor of a skyscraper overlooking Central Park. The unit spans multiple floors of the 90-story tower. Panoramic views of the entire city, finishes that cost more than most people's neighborhoods, and a price tag that shattered every residential sales record in U.S. history. And Griffin, a hedge fund billionaire running Citadel worth roughly $35 billion, doesn't even live there full-time. He has homes in Palm Beach, Chicago, and London. 157 is apparently just somewhere to occasionally exist. The building itself is famously half empty. Oligarchs and funds park money in it. Nobody actually shows up. So the most expensive home ever sold in America is basically a very tall, very expensive storage unit with a view. B tier. Napoleon Bonaparte, 1803. Strapped for cash after abandoning his American empire dreams, he sold 808,000 square miles of North America to the United States for $15 million. That's roughly 4 cents per acre, covering what is now 15 states, including Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, Oklahoma, and chunks of everything between the Mississippi and the Rockies. $15 million for a third of a continent. Thomas Jefferson apparently couldn't wire the money fast enough. The deal closed April 30th, 1803, and the US effectively doubled in size overnight with a transaction smaller than some modern startup seed rounds. And that land today? Conservative estimates put the combined value of those 828,000 square miles somewhere north of 1.2 trillion. That's not adjusted for oil reserves, mineral rights, agricultural yield, or the 6 major cities sitting on top of it. The thing is, Napoleon thought he was getting the better deal. History's greatest real estate arbitrage, assuming you overlook the part where nobody asked the people already living there. B tier. Buckingham Palace. King George III paid $21,000 for Buckingham House in 1761, roughly $40,000 in today's money, somehow less than the average American down payment on a starter home. Then, the British government spent the next 260 years renovating it on the public's tab. 775 rooms, 92 offices, 19 staterooms, 78,000 square feet of floor space sitting in London's most expensive postcode. Current valuation, $4.9 billion, $6.2 billion, making it the most expensive residential address on Earth. And technically, the king doesn't even own it. It belongs to the Crown Estate, which means it belongs to nobody and everybody simultaneously, which sounds like a legal dodge because it is exactly that. The British taxpayer didn't just fund a home renovation. They funded a $6.2 billion generational wealth transfer to a family that never listed it on Zillow. S tier. The 2 Boeing VC-25B replacements, ordered in 2018, are contracted at $3.9 billion total. That's roughly the entire GDP of Belize. For 2 planes, the president uses Air Force One approximately 90 hours a year, which works out to somewhere north of $21 million per flight hour when you amortize the purchase price alone, before fuel, crew, or the fighter escort that tags along uninvited. Each VC-25B gets a custom interior, hardened communications, aerial refueling capability, and enough secure conference space to run a small war from 35,000 feet, which, apparently, is the point. The original contract ballooned so badly that Boeing agreed to a fixed-price deal to stop the bleeding and then lost money on it anyway. B tier. The USS Gerald R. Ford was commissioned in July 2007 at $13.20 billion, the most expensive warship ever constructed in human history. She displaces 100,000 tons, stretches 1,106 feet, carries 75 aircraft, and runs on 2 nuclear reactors. The Navy spent 8 years over the original schedule getting her there. Then the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, the crown jewel replacing the old steam catapults, failed repeatedly in early sea trials, logging roughly 1 malfunction every 240 launches. The system designed to make her the most advanced carrier ever built couldn't reliably throw a plane into the sky. And somehow the follow-on ship of the same class, the USS Kennedy, is projected to cost even more. B tier. The F-35 Lightning II program has cost $1.7 trillion across its lifetime, more than the entire GDP of Australia, making it the most expensive weapons program in human history, and it's not particularly close. Lockheed Martin launched the project to build a single stealth multi-role jet serving the Air Force, Navy, and Marines simultaneously. 3 variants, 1 unified platform. The program began in 2001, and as of 2023, the per unit cost sits around $80 million per aircraft, with some variants pushing $110 million. The US committed to purchasing over 2,400 of them. Into its 2nd decade of active service, the F-35 was still being periodically grounded for software patches. The most expensive military program ever conceived needed IT support like a laptop from Best Buy. The Pentagon's own testing office flagged over 800 open deficiencies as recently as 2022. 800 on a $1.7 trillion program. To be fair, it is genuinely stealthy, genuinely capable, and genuinely terrifying in the right hands. But $1.7 trillion for a jet that needed a reboot is a sentence that writes itself. C tier. Now imagine 15 countries pooled their money, their engineers, their national pride, and built something genuinely historic in orbit. The International Space Station cost $150 billion to build and operate through 2023. 15 nations. Over 30 years of planning, assembly, and continuous human habitation since November 2000. It is the most complex structure humanity has ever constructed, sitting 250 miles above your head right now. It spans 307 feet tip to tip. It has hosted 233 astronauts from 20 countries. It travels at 17,500 miles per hour, completing 16 sunrises every single day. And NASA's official plan is to crash it into the ocean by 2030. A $150 billion structure, deorbited, on purpose, into the Pacific. SpaceX is reportedly getting paid $843 million just to push it into the water, which sounds like the world's most expensive disposal fee. The thing is, there is no tier label for most expensive object ever deliberately destroyed. We're inventing one. S tier for sheer audacity. The Manhattan Project cost $2.2 billion in 1945 dollars. That's roughly $32 billion today, and the US government spent it on exactly 2 bombs. 30,000 people. 3 secret cities built from scratch. Oak Ridge, Tennessee, Hanford, Washington, Los Alamos, New Mexico. 6 years of classified research across dozens of facilities. The entire operation was so compartmentalized that most of the 130,000 employees had no idea what they were actually building. Then, on August 6, 1945, they dropped the first one on Hiroshima. And on August 9th, 3 days later, they dropped the second one on Nagasaki. A $32 billion program, delivered in 72 hours. Which sounds like the world's most catastrophic product launch, except the product worked exactly as intended, and that's somehow the darkest part of the sentence. The thing is, no other weapons program in history burned through that kind of money and used its entire inventory that fast. Most militaries hoard their most expensive assets. The US apparently just ran a 2-shot experiment on 2 cities and called it a conclusion. A tier, obviously. NASA's Apollo program ran from 1961 to 1972 and cost $25.4 billion in then-year dollars. Today, that's roughly $280 billion. For that, America put 12 astronauts on the lunar surface across 6 missions between July 1969 and December 1972, the only humans in history to walk on another world. The Saturn V rocket that carried them there remains the most powerful launch vehicle ever successfully flown. Standing 363 feet tall, producing 7.6 million pounds of thrust, it never failed a crewed mission. Not once. And then NASA quietly lost the blueprints. The original design documents for the Saturn V were apparently misplaced, degraded, or dispersed across contractors so thoroughly that engineers in the 2000s had to reverse engineer components from the physical hardware sitting in museums. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. 280 billion, 12 men on the moon, 0 functional rockets left, and the schematics for the most successful heavy lift vehicle ever built ended up essentially in a filing cabinet nobody labeled. S tier. The Eisenhower Federal Aid Highway Act landed on a president's desk in June 1956 with a $25 billion price tag. Eisenhower signed it, Congress cheered, and America started pouring concrete. Then, they didn't stop for 35 years. The final bill for 48,000 miles of interstate highway came in somewhere north of $500 billion, 20 times the original estimate, making it the most expensive public works project in American history. That's more than the Manhattan Project, Apollo, and the ISS combined. The primary funding mechanism, the Highway Trust Fund, was supposed to be self-sustaining through gas taxes. It has required emergency federal bailouts repeatedly since 2008. And yet, it actually worked. You can drive from Miami to Seattle without hitting a single traffic light. Every Amazon package, grocery truck, and road trip exists because Eisenhower basically paved the continent and quietly got away with it. C tier. In July 2023, a group led by Josh Harris paid $605 billion for the Washington Commanders, not a stadium. a football team, roster, logo, merchandising rights, and one of the most exhausted fan bases in America. That's the largest sum ever paid for a North American sports franchise, beating the Denver Broncos' $4.65 billion record from just a year earlier for a team that hadn't reached a conference championship in 3 decades. The seller, Dan Snyder, bought the team in 1999 for $800 million. 24 years later, a 656% return after congressional investigations, harassment lawsuits, and fans booing him outside his own stadium. Worst owner in the NFL. Best exit in sports history. S tier. Subscribe to this channel for more tier lists. We're done here.